Buenas and half a day. Thank you all for being here. The office of Senator Telena Cruz Nelson will now convene for this virtual public hearing. Today is Friday, August 27, 2021, and it is currently 12:01 in the afternoon. For the record and in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Friday, August 20, 2021, and the second notice on Friday, August 25th, 2021. Notice of today's hearing was also on the Guam Legislature's website. I'd like to thank Director Brennan from Department of Youth Affairs for joining us today, Mr. Fred Nishihara from the Deputy Attorney General, and Mrs. Leilani Nahalua from the Ali Shelter. Thank you for being here with us. We've called this virtual public hearing today to provide the listening audience discussions on resolution number 151-36LS, which is relative to expressing the utmost support of I Mina'trentai Sais, Liheslaturan Guåhan, HR 1652, the VOCA Fix, to sustain the Crime Victims Fund Act of 2021, which was introduced by the Honorable Representative Jerrold Nadler, and through its passage in U.S. Public Law 117-27, which secures funding to Crime Victims Fund to waive matching requirements and for other purposes of the Victims of Crime Act. Introduced as HR 1652, the bill adds a new source of funding for the Crime Victims Fund and makes changes to formula grants supported by this fund. Specifically, the bill would direct revenues collected from deferred prosecution and non-prosecution agreements to be deposited into the Crime Victims Fund, which would have originally been deposited into the general fund of the Treasury. The bill was introduced in the House on March 3, 2021, and was passed on March 17, 2021. The bill was received in the Senate on March 18, 2021, to ensure funding in the Crime Victims Fund is dispersed to victims, their families, and their advocates each year. The Victims of Crime Act is important because its funding will help many victims of crime, most especially women and children. It can help with getting assault victims proper treatment and guidance, which are often overlooked. It can help abused children receive reassuring care. In Guam, the Office of Attorney General administers the Crime Victim Assistance Grant Program, whose rules and regulations are consistent with federal and local guidelines. Through this law, Guam may also see changes brought forth in the Crime Victims Fund be applied to our island and will help many who cannot afford to pay for needs because of their PTSD that accompanies the trauma of being victims. So I'd like to now invite Director Brennan of DYA if she can just extend some remarks and comments on this passage.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. I'm in full support of Resolution 151-36, recognizing the substantial contributions of the Crime Victims Fund. Always been an advocate in my capacity as the director of the Department of Youth Affairs, in my former capacity as a chief probation officer, and in my current capacity in assisting child protective services. I can see that the victims assistance and compensation programs that VOCA funds is essential to supporting our victims of crime, particularly violent crime on Guam. And so I'm in full support, and I thank you. It is an honor to be here.
Thank you, Director Brennan. Fred, is there any comments or testimony you would like to give?
Yes, thank you. And Hafare Majority Leader Nelson, thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony on Resolution 151-36 relative to expressing the utmost support of I Mina'trentai Sais na Liheslaturan Guåhan for HR 1652, the VOCA Fix to Sustain Crime Victims Act of 2021, introduced by Honorable Representative Jerrold Nadler, and through its passage, U.S. Public Law 117-27, which secures funding to the Crime Victims Fund to waive matching requirements and for other purposes of the Victims Crime Act, or VOCA as we call it. The VOCA Fix to Sustain Crime Victims Funds Act of 2021 has passed by the U.S. Senate on July 2021 and subsequently signed by the U.S. President, becoming Public Law number 117-27 27 on July 22nd, 2021. This represents a monumental victory for the future of victim services, both nationally and throughout Guam. Sustainable funding to the Crime Victims Fund is critical to ensure that victims of crime are met with high-quality services that are trauma-informed, culturally responsive, and reflective of diverse communities. Changes to the VOCA statute will provide for increased funding and flexibility in the management of VOCA awards, including direct federal criminal settlements from non-prosecution and deferred prosecution agreements currently deposited into the General Treasury into the Crime Victims Fund. Increasing the percentage of state compensation programs may be reimbursed from 60 to 75%. Provide the U.S. Attorney General the ability to issue no-cost extension on VOCA awards, giving states the ability to waive local match for VOCA assistance grants for the duration of the pandemic. Provide additional flexibility for compensation programs to provide support for victims even if they do not interact with law enforcement prior to requesting assistance, and removing the restitution recovery penalty annual state compensation certification forms. In fiscal year 2020, the Office of the Attorney General issued subawards to 6 local organizations totaling $2.9 million under the FY and FY 17 and 18 VOCA victim assistance programs. The subaward support victims of crime through funding services such as information and referral service, personal advocacy, accompaniment, emotional support, safety services, temporary shelter housing services, criminal and civil justice system assistance, child visitation, victim notification services, and victim compensation, just to name a few. The OAG also received $115,000 in FY 18 and 19 VOCA victim compensation funding, which reimburses Guam Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund at 60 cents for every dollar. In compensation awards issued to eligible victims and or survivors of qualifying crimes under the Criminal Injuries Compensation Program. A total of $605,000 was paid to the victims under the CICP since the start of the program in 2015. Based on the data submitted by VOCA Victim Assistance Services providers on Guam, 4,286 individuals sought victim assistance services in 2020, and 38,958 direct service hours were supported by the VOCA program. The total amount of funds that the Office of the Victims of Crime distributes each year for VOCA programs depends upon the amounts deposited into the Crime Victims Fund. During the preceding years, the limit set by Congress. Over the past few years, VOCA funding, particularly for Guam, has decreased significantly from $1.8 million in FY 18 to $700,000 in FY 21. The passage of the VOCA Fix Act provides increased funding for victim services in the future and flexibility to allow no-cost extensions for current and future VOCA grant awards. Additionally, the VOCA Fix Act increases the percentage of reimbursement for Guam's Criminal Injuries Compensation Program from 60 to 75 or 75 cents on every dollar. There is an infographic in our writing that we are submitting to you as well, Senator. As you can tell, basically the availability of VOCA funds helps Guam meet an important and immense need for our community. We thank you for your attention to this issue and for your introduction of this resolution. And we stand in full support of this effort and look forward to its adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. And I'd also like to call Leilani Nahalawa.
Thank you, Senator Nelson, for inviting today to be here to be a part of this wonderful resolution 151-36. And Catholic Social Service Alley Shelter is in full support of the resolution and the eventual adoption. We are recipients and sub-recipients of monies that come out of VOCA, which assist tremendously the women, men, and children who are fleeing domestic violence and other forms of abuse. And without this funding source, we would not be able to provide the services that we do as the only emergency protective shelter on our island for the past 40 years. So thank you again, Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Nani. And I know that you've been feeling under the weather, so thank you for showing up today and giving testimony. The community thanks all of you for the work that you do to protect our victims, to advocate for them, and to also be a safe haven for them. And so we owe you an immense amount of gratitude. We understand the traumas that you also see dealing with assisting these victims. So thank you for your resilience and being able to sustain your mental health, because we know that it also is very difficult to do that. And thank you again for showing up today for this hearing. And hopefully we can hear this resolution on the floor very soon and send it to Congress. So with that being said, if there's not any, there are no comments, any additional comments you would like to add, we will go ahead and adjourn this public hearing, and we will also be sending copies of the committee record of your testimonies to Congress as well. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to show today. Okay, it is now 12 p.m. in the afternoon, and we will now adjourn this virtual public hearing. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day and God bless you.